It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 31, looking at the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Botswana. Part 1, the candidates. Here we go! Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin and this is Series 31 on the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode covers Botswana's players. Just a note on where we're at in our media casts. We're publishing previews of the groups and teams of the 2025 African Cup at the same time as this series on the players. Last summer, we previewed the groups, teams, and players for the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup. We also did a media cast introducing ourselves. And after this African Cup here, we will tackle the massive 48-team World Cup in the summer of 2026. So we plan to start publishing those in the springtime of 2026. We're doing this media cast on the players here in two parts. Part 1 here is a look at the candidates for the squad and their likelihood of making it. We examine the participation of players in games over the recent period, as well as a couple of other factors to categorize players into definite, likely, or possible, or else possible but unlikely or seemingly off the squad. And we'll go into detail more on the players we think likely to reach the final squad, and less, sometimes just even the names of players unlikely to get there. Part 2 will come out when the squad lists are released and the final squad selected. That'll probably be in mid-December. And at that time, we'll go back over the list we create here and see who made it and who didn't. And we'll also cover things like injuries and surprise selections. So this episode has 3 sections. In section 1, we're going to look at some general information on the team. Section 2, the main business here. We're going to cover the main candidates in each position and tell you a little bit about the main players. And in section 3, we will summarize and conclude, especially focusing on injuries to keep an eye on. Let's begin then. And we begin in section 1 with some general information on the squad here. Yes, and actually we'll begin with club affiliations. What kind of clubs are the players playing for? And really this is better done in comparison from team to team. So if you compare Botswana here, say with Senegal, who's in their group, it's kind of interesting to get a sense, I guess, of the quality of the players that they have on their team. For Botswana, about 85% of the players play domestically in their league. So some of the main teams that they play for here are the, excuse me a second. All right. Are the Township Rollers, the Jwaneng Galaxy, and Gaborone United, some of the main teams there in Botswana. Some of them do go to South Africa. It doesn't seem to be a priority. They kind of go back and forth between domestic and South African teams. In this case, though, we don't have any players or very few of the main players playing for South Africa. We put that at 0%, and these numbers are not very rigorous. They're just trying to get a sense of things. Larger African leagues, like South Africa, we have about 5% in. So we have some players playing in Morocco, Algeria, and Libya. And then in Europe, just I estimated it at about 3%. One player playing in England, and that's probably for a team that not many people have even heard of. It's Malden and Tiptree. Tiptree is the name of the club, and that's the only one there in Europe. So the topmost clubs we have for Botswana players would be Maghreb Fez in Morocco, and Oran in Algeria. Actually, there are two Orans, and I'm not sure which one it is. But anyway, there you get a sense of it. 85% domestic, 5% larger African, 3% in Europe. It doesn't even add up to 100%, but again, not a very rigorous examination, just an overall feeling. Let's move on to recent games. The games we'll be looking at. Well, for most teams, we begin our narrative with the 2023 African Cup. It's not part of the participation count, but Botswana was not part of the African Cup there in 2023. So we'll just be beginning our narrative in the first set of games in March of 2024. That is two friendlies that they had in March of 2024. In June of 2024, they have two World Cup qualifying games, qualifying for the 2026 World Cup there. And in the fall of 24, from September to November, they have African Cup qualifying, so qualification for this tournament. That is 6 games over September to November, so 2 in September, 2 in October, 2 in November, and that's the start and finish of African Cup qualifying. Immediately after that, the manager resigned, as we'll see at the beginning of section 2, so we have a new manager coming in. Actually, that doesn't seem to make a huge difference for Botswana in terms of the selection of players. So under the new manager, the first set of games is 2 World Cup qualifiers in March of 2025. Most teams played some friendlies in June of 2025. There was no kind of tournament duty there, but some friendlies, but not Botswana. They had no games in June of 2025. But in the fall of 2025, well, September and October, they completed World Cup qualification with 2 games in each. So that is 4 games for Botswana. And that's what we'll be looking at in terms of participation and deciding the likelihood of which players will be selected to the squad. So we move on to our next section, which is formations. What kind of formations did Botswana use? Again, we don't want to go into too much detail. We have them playing 16 games over this period. In almost half of those games, they used a 4-3-3 formation. So that is 44% of their games. And in 31% of their games, they used a 4-2-3-1 formation. That is 31%. And then in the other 4 games, or 26%, they used 2 different formations, which we won't get into. What we're kind of looking at here is just to get a sense of the shape, especially of the defense and offense there. So on defense, we have a 2-man central defense 100% of the time. That means they never use 3 central defenders, something like a 3-5-2 formation. Up front, it's a single forward 87% of the time, and a 2-man forward line 13% of the time. So usually we're looking at a single forward. And then in the midfield, we'll discuss what the midfield looks like when we get to that section. Let us finish with upcoming games. Well, again, just like June of 2025, most teams played some friendlies in November if they didn't have any other duties, like the World Cup playoffs, a few of the teams were involved in. However, Botswana did not play any friendlies during that time. So, and then they have no friendlies scheduled for December. We're hoping they will, because that'll kind of give us something to look at in terms of going into the Cup and predicting their starters. But right now, nothing has been scheduled. So we'll have to see if they do set something up. Okay, that is it for section 1. We move on to section 2 and our look at the candidates. Let's begin with the manager. And let's put a couple of names on the list here. We have the current manager, Morena Ramoraboli. The current manager, and the outgoing manager, who left after the African Cup qualification there, is Didier Gomez, or Didier Gomez da Rosa. Let's look at the narrative for what happened over the period then, or even broader than that. But anyway, Morena Ramoraboli became manager of the team in January of 2025, and he replaced Didier Gomez da Rosa, who had been manager from November 2023 to November 2024. He came in just before the last game of African Cup 2023 qualifying. Botswana was already out of contention for that tournament, so his focus would have been this tournament. And actually, he began by guiding them through 2 World Cup 2026 qualification matches in the fall of 2024, and the first 4 games of African Cup qualifying for this tournament. Now, there's a bit of disagreement in my sources on when he actually left. Anyway, having lost the first 2 games in September, Botswana beat the higher-ranked Cape Verde away and then at home. And some sources have him quitting the team after that. In fact, on the very day of the second win, says one of my sources. He announced his resignation, giving as the reason that the Botswana FA was not giving enough support to the team. But another source, in fact, 2 other sources, say he quit in November after the last 2 games. They tied those 2 games. That included a draw in Egypt, and they secured a second place win or a second place finish over Mauritania and earned qualification for this cup. So regardless of when he announced his retirement, it was in January 2025 that I shouldn't say announced his retirement, but quit the team. Da Rosa quit the team. It was in January 2025 that Morena Ramoraboli was appointed, and he completed World Cup qualifying where they finished 5th of 6th in their group. So that went all the way to October, which was just a couple of months ago there. Anyway, so that is Morena Ramoraboli. Let's take a look at him and get a little information on him. So as we saw, manager of Botswana since 2025. Prior to that, he has twice been caretaker manager of South Africa. Once in 2023, that was his last job, and once in 2021, that was his last job before that. So not a lot of experience. Beyond that, he managed Jwaneng Galaxy in Botswana from 2021 to 2023, and African Warriors in South Africa from 2014 to 15. So a big gap really between his managerial jobs there. So Morena Ramoraboli leading them through this cup. Okay, let's move on to goalkeepers. So what we're going to do here is begin by nominating or just letting you know the names of the candidates and their likelihood. Then we're going to do the story of the position, the narrative on the position, and then we'll look in more detail at the main players. So just a little on the color coding here. Well, let me put some names up and then talk about the color coding of the names for the YouTube watchers. Interestingly, we have 4 likely candidates here, so none at the definite level, but 4 at the likely level. The first one is Kabelo Dombe, and then we have Goition Foko, and Kiagil Gosipula, third, and then fourth we have Lasenya Malapela. And then at the possible but unlikely level, we have Kabelo Mafakala. So now I can talk about the color coding here. If the name is in black, that means they've been through a tournament. So Kabelo Dombe, the only one here to have gone through a tournament. We also see that manager Didier Gomez de Rosa is in black because he has managed through a tournament. If the name is in light gray, it means they haven't been through a tournament. And if the name is in orange, like Morena Ramoraboli, it means they're new to the squad over the course of this period. So because he came in January 2025, his name is in orange. Okay, let's go to the narrative of the position. So Goalkeepers Foko had been on and off the starting keeper since way back in June of 2022, but he became the consistent starter from the beginning of this period in March 2024, at least up until the first game in September 2025. He was on the bench for the second September 2025 game and then not even called up for the October matches. Kiagil Gossipula, who had been off the team for almost 2 years, returned to start the last three. He was actually a substitute for the first game in September 2025, not a substitute, but on the bench, and started the last three. So Kabelo Dombe and Mafakela had been on the bench during most of the period, so might have had their hopes dashed by Gossipula kind of coming in and taking the starting position. So there we have it. Let's take a look at the candidates, beginning with Kabelo Dombe. He's the most senior player on the squad. Been with Botswana since 2011 with 63 caps, and he is 35 years old and plays for Township Rollers in Botswana. He did play for a couple of teams in South Africa there, and pretty big teams, Bloemfontein Celtic and Platinum Stars, but he always seems to come back to Township Rollers for the team. He was well, we'll point out if they're not born in Botswana. He was born in Botswana, as most of them were. He was one of the few players who played in the African Cup in 2012, which was the last time Botswana reached the African Cup. He was just on the bench there, but that's why his name is in black. Over the period, though, he started none of their 16 games. But he was on the bench for 12 and not selected for 4 others. That includes the first 2 matches, so he's pretty clearly one of the backup keepers. I probably shouldn't have put him first on the list there in terms of likelihood, but I think I did that because he has tournament experience. Next, we have Goalkeepers Foko. And he's been with Botswana since 2016 with 37 caps and even has a goal for the national team. And Foko is 31 years old, plays for Jwaneng Galaxy in Botswana. And he started, as we saw in the narrative, 13 of their 16 games over the period. He was on the bench for 1, but not selected for the last 2 matches. So whatever is going on there. It leaves us a bit uncertain, but because he started so many games, we still think he's a likely candidate. Next, we have Kiagil Gossipula. And Gossipula has been with Botswana since 2018. He has 5 caps and is 29 years old. He plays for Centre Chiefs in Botswana, recently moved in 2025 from Orapa United. And as we saw, he returned to the squad. He returned after an almost 2-year absence in September of 2025 and started the last 3 of their remaining 4 games and was on the bench for the first game there in September 2025. So also a likely candidate, we think, but also likely Lasenia Malapala, He's been with Botswana since 2019 with 7 caps and is also 29 years old, and he's with Orapa United in Botswana. He returned after a year-long absence himself, but he returned much earlier in October 2024. Didn't start any of the remaining 10 games, but was on the bench for 8 of them and not selected for 2 matches. So 4 likely candidates. Probably they'll bring 3 to the Cup, so one of them has got to go. The possible but unlikely candidate is Kabelo Mafakala, and he returned after a 2-year absence in March of 2025, was on the bench for 2 matches, but then not selected for the last 4. So we think Mafakala is unlikely here, but an outside chance of him coming in. That's it for goalkeepers. Let's move on to defenders and begin with central defenders. So we'll start by looking at the candidates. We have a definite candidate in Moshe Gaulaulwe. Moshe Gaulaulwe is there at the definite level. And we have 2 candidates at the likely level, Tebogo Kopalang and Thatayon Dietlokwe. Thatayon Dietlokwe. And then we have 2 candidates or 1 candidate at the possible level. That is Shanganani Nganda. And 1 candidate at the possible but unlikely level, that is Kimonitswe Mangwidi, or possibly Mangwedi. Okay, let's look at the positions. So as we said in section 1, it's a 2-man central defense 100% of the time. And Moshe Gaulaulwe, Thatayon Dietlokwe and Tebogo Kopalang, basically those 3 players rotated in the 2 defensive positions, 2 central defensive positions. Gaulaulwe did start all games, although when he was not a CD and not a central defender, which was 5 times, he did play as a defensive midfielder, and I believe that was in June to October of 2024. So 5 games as a defensive midfielder there. Sorry, I'm struggling a bit with the names because they're difficult. Dietlokwe had more starts than Kopalang, but he was not selected for 4 of the last 6 games there, Dietlokwe. For his part, Kopalang started as a right back once and was not selected for the last 2 matches. So both of them, actually, Dietlokwe and Kopalang, were absent for the last match, making it the only time another player had to be called in. So partnering Gaulaulwe in the last game was right back Thabo Lane-Anyan. For that one. And we're going to see actually Lane-Anyan started in the midfield as well. Okay, so basically we have a rotation among those 3 players, Gaulaulwe and Kopalang and Dietlokwe. Okay, let's go on to left backs, where we hope the names are a little easier to pronounce. I always wonder what the players would think if they heard me butchering their names. Apologies. Okay, on to left backs then. Here we have 3 candidates. The first one at the likely level, Mothusi Johnson, and 2 candidates at the possible level, Kitso Mangolo and Chico Molefe. And let's talk about the position itself. Kitso Mangolo started the first 6 games of the period, replaced in one of those games by Mothusi Johnson. Then Johnson abruptly took over the position from October 2024, and he was replaced once by Mangolo. Both players were unavailable for the second game in November of 2024, so Chico Malefe got his single start in that game. Okay, let's look at the candidates here. Mothusi Johnson, been with Botswana since 2019 with 34 caps and 1 goal. He's 28 years old, and he's in his second spell with Gaborone United in Botswana since 2022. He started 7 of their 16 games over the period, as well as subbing in for 4, and he actually scored one of their goals in World Cup qualification there. So that's pretty good for a defenseman. Mothusi Johnson, then the likely candidate here. But usually they do bring 2, and probably Kitso Mangolo is a bit ahead of Chico Malefe. Kitso Mangolo has been with Botswana since 2022, and he has 26 caps, also 1 goal, and he's 26 years old. He plays in South Africa for not a very big club, Richards Bay in South Africa since 2025, and he moved from Botswana there to play in South Africa. Mangolo started 6 of their 16 games over the period, as well as subbing in for 3 and on the bench for 1. But there were 6 matches he was not selected for, and that includes the last 2 matches. So that maybe gives Molefe a bit of an in terms of being selected. Kitso Mangolo. Then the first of the possible candidates, Chico Malefe is the second one. He's been with Botswana since 2022, but only 2 caps there and no goals. He's 30 years old and plays for Dwane Galaxy in Botswana. He got a single cap in 2022 and then returned after a more than 2-year absence in November of 2024 and started that 1 game when both of the other players were unavailable. Started 1 of their remaining 8 games. He was on the bench for 3, and that includes the last 2 matches, and the other 4 he was not selected for. So Molefe, basically those October games, giving him a bit of a chance at selection here. All right, that's it for left backs. We move on to right backs, and we have a definite candidate in Alfred Valafi, and a likely candidate in Thabo Leinanye, who we mentioned playing as a central defender in 1 game. At the multiple level, we have Botsile Sakana, and then seemingly off the squad, Motshaletsi Sekele. Okay, let's talk about the position then. Alfred Valafi started all but 3 of the games over the period, and the 3 times he was not there were all in 2024. He was replaced in the first 2 by Motshaletsi Sekele, but he is now off the team. In the 3rd game, he was replaced by Thabo Leinanye. And so he looks to be the backup in this position right now, although he also did play in the midfield and, as we saw, as a central defender. Let's take a look at definite candidate Alfred Valafi. He's been with Botswana since 2022 and has 33 caps and no goals. He's 26 years old, plays for Gaborone United in Botswana since 2017. And started 13 of the 16 games over this period, was on the bench for 1 and not selected for 2 others. So seems to have a firm grip on the position. Alfred Valafi on the starting position. Thabo Leinanye was with Botswana since 2017. He has 20 caps and no goals and is 32 years old. He's a long-term player for Dwane Galaxy since 2015. And he returned after a 5-year absence from the squad in November of 2024 and started 3 of their remaining 8 games and was on the bench for the 5 others. As we saw, he started in 3 different positions, but There we have it. We think he's likely to make the squad. Next, we have Botsile Sakana, and he's new. That's why his name is in orange. Came in this period. So since 2024, he has 5 caps and no goals, and is 24 years old. He plays for Orapa United in Botswana, and got his first appearance on the bench in October of 2024. He didn't start any games, but he was on the bench for 4, including the last 2 matches, and not selected for 5 others. So I think his 5 caps maybe came in the COSAFA Cup or in the African Nations League, because he doesn't seem to have any caps for the senior team. Anyway, Botsile Sakana, a possible candidate, and Mocholetsi Sekele, seemingly off the squad. He was, as we saw, replaced Valafi for 2 games in 2024, but he has not been selected for the last 11 matches. Okay, that is it for right backs, and we move on to the defensive end of the midfield, and we will handle defensive and central midfielders together. Let me talk a little bit about the position then. It's a 2-man midfield 44% of the time, so that would be something like a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-4-2. And it's a 3-man midfield 56% of the time, or a little more than half, in something like a 4-3-3 or a 4-5-1 formation there. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of distinction between defensive and central midfielders. That's just the way they're coded, so we organize them that way. For defensive midfielders, we have a definite candidate in Gape Mohutsiwa at the definite level there, and then we have one at the possible level, Koketso Majafi. So we'll come back and look at them. For central midfielders, we also have a definite candidate in Gilbert Baruti. He's actually coded as an attacking midfielder. We've moved him back here because most of his starts were as a central midfielder, but he did appear twice actually as a central attacking midfielder, and even played as a centre forward once too. But as I say, mostly played in the midfield. And then we have 4 possible candidates. The first one is Godiro Modingwane, I think is how I should say it, Modingwane. The second one, Libo Gang Ditsale, and then Mothuzi Cooper, and then Fenyo Nicholas Serameng. 4 of those candidates at the possible level. 1 at the possible but unlikely level, Karobo Firi, and then 1 seemingly off the squad, Ole Bongeng Ramotse. Okay, that is a lot of candidates, but keep in mind we're filling 2 to 3 positions here. Let's talk about the narrative over the period. The only player in the position throughout the period was Gape Mohutsiwa, and even he was absent for 5 of the games. Otherwise, players came and went after playing 2 to 3 games. They include basically all of the players on the list here. And they also include, as we saw, central defender Moshi Gaulalawe. He played 5 of the games in 2024 here, and also includes 2 attacking midfielders. We moved Gilbert Baruti here. The other one was, we also moved Modingwane here. He's coded as an attacking midfielder too. Those 2 played 5 games in late 2024 and early 2025. Roughly 5 games. I think Modingwane played 5 and Baruti maybe 4. Anyway, towards the end, did Sally Cooper and left winger Cabello Sikanyang, who we'll meet soon, they were the flavour of the day in the fall of 2025. And I say that a bit ironically, but that's kind of how it seems, that the kind of little groups of players were favoured in the beginning and in the middle and then at the end. With Gape Motusiwa playing throughout, although he did only start 2 of the last 4 games. So pretty complex here in the midfield. We'll look at the candidates here, and we'll begin with Gape Motosiwa. He's been with Botswana since 2015. 33 caps and 4 goals for him. He's 28 years old. And here I have the answer to which Oran in Algeria it's MC Oran in Algeria that he plays for, a recent move since 2025. But he also played for ASO Schlaf in Algeria for 3 years before that, and in Botswana before that. He has scored in African Cup 2023 qualifying and scored 2 of their 12 goals in World Cup qualifying recently. And Mohutsiwa has started 11 of their 16 games over the period. He was also subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 1. So just 1 match that he was not selected for. Looks like an important player for them, Mohutsiwa, and so we consider him a definite candidate. Next we have Koketso Majafi. He's been with Botswana since 2024 with 6 caps and no goals. He's 32 years old, so a real latecomer to the squad here, playing for Orapi United in Botswana. And Majafi started 3 of their 16 games over the period. He was subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 3, but not selected for 8 others, including the last 4 matches. So almost making him an unlikely candidate here, but we have him at the possible level. Moving on to the central midfielders at the definite level, we have Gilbert Baruti, as I said, coded as an attacking midfielder, and he's been with Botswana since 2018 with 21 caps and 1 goal, and is 32 years old. And he recently moved to Centre Chiefs in Botswana, having been with Jwaneng Galaxy for 10 years before that. Baruti started 7 of the 16 games over the period, as well as subbing in for 7 games. Just 2 matches he wasn't selected for, and those were the 2 March 2024 friendlies at the beginning of the period. Actually not friendlies, I think they were World Cup qualifying games. Anyway, Gilbert Baruti, a definite candidate here. No candidates at the likely level, so we look at the first of our 4 possible candidates. Godiro Modingwane is with Botswana since 2018. He has 27 caps and no goals, and he's 29 years old. And he plays for Defence Force 11 in Botswana since 2018. He has started 6 of their 16 games over the period, subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 3, and not selected for 6 matches, including the last 4 matches. So didn't show up or wasn't called up in the fall of 2025. I should probably put him lower on the list because of that. I'm going to put him at the bottom of the list there. And next we look at Libogang Ditsele, and he's a real veteran for the team since 2014 with 60 caps and 3 goals, and is 29 years old. He plays for Gilport Lions in Botswana since 2022. He was off the team actually for a year, and he returned in November 2024 to start 3 of their remaining 8 games, as well as subbing in for 2 and on the bench for 3 others. So yes, since his return, he was called up all the time. So Libogang Ditsele, possible here, but close to being likely, I would say. Next, we have Mothusi Cooper. He's with Botswana since 2019. 29 caps and no goals for the 28-year-old, and plays for Township Rollers in Botswana. returned himself after an almost 2-year absence. He came back in September of 2025 and started 2 of their remaining 4 games. But then he wasn't selected for the last 2 matches, so difficult to know how important he is in the manager's plans. Mothusi Cooper then a possible candidate. And finally, we have Fenyo Nicholas Serameng. He's been with Botswana since 2022 with 6 caps and no goals. He's 29 years old and he plays for Suha Flamingos in Botswana since 2024. Serameng started the first 2 of their 16 games over the period. He was on the bench for 4 and then not selected for 12 others. However, he did come back in September of 2025 and was on the bench for the September matches and then not selected for the October matches. So Fenyo Nicholas Serameng, also a possible candidate. We have at the possible but unlikely level newcomer Karabo Fury. So basically he just poked his head in. He was on the bench for 2 games. 2 games in September of 2025 and then not selected for the last 2 matches, but has no history prior to that. He did play in the COSAFA Cup for Botswana, but we think he's an unlikely candidate here. Finally, Olubogeng Ramotse. He actually did play a few games at the beginning of the period, but last appeared for the national team in November of 2024. Okay, that is the midfield, a big chunk of players there. And we move upfield to the attacking midfield and the left side of the attack here. So I'll just preface this by saying that it's very fluid up here. Players switch positions quite a bit. They have a few main players who kind of rotate around the positions a little bit. Left attacker could mean anything from an attacking winger in a 4-4-2 formation to an attacking midfielder in a 4-2-3-1 formation, or even a left or right forward in a 4-3-3 formation. We consider all of those positions to be left attack, and it is usually played by the same players. So that's why we've kind of grouped them together. Okay, we have actually 2 definite candidates here. The first one is coded as a forward, and he does play as a forward a bit, but we've put him here just to really to fit the narrative. It's Tumisang Orabonye, and he's a definite candidate. And then the other one we actually saw in the midfield a couple of times, Kabelo Siakanyang. Both of those definite candidates, and that's all we have over here. So let's look at the position. Basically, it was shared between these 2, Siakanyang and Orabonye, both of them playing in other positions when they weren't playing here. And we did have 3 players come in for single appearances, but those were out of position players, and we don't want to go into the weeds too much there. So we generally don't name players who just show up one time. Okay, let's look at these candidates here. So Tumisang Orabonye, as I said, coded as a forward. He's been with Botswana since 2017 and has 61 caps and 6 goals. So a pretty mature player on the field here with he's 29 years old, and he plays for Wydad Casablanca in Morocco since 2025, and he also was with Al Ittihad in 2025. He's played for other teams in Morocco and Algeria, and moved from Botswana in 2020 to play there in those Northern African leagues. He started 14 of their 16 games over the period, Orabonye, and he subbed in for 1 and was not selected for 1. So a definite candidate here, no matter where he is on the field. Even more experienced is Caballo Siaganyang. He's been with the team since 2014 and has 73 caps and 10 goals, and he is 32 years old. He also plays in Morocco. He plays for Mazfez and played for other teams in another team in Morocco. He's also played in the UAE and South Africa. Siakanyang started 14 of their 16 games over the period and was not selected for the two others. He scored 2 of their 12 goals in World Cup qualifying, Siakanyang. And as I said, you'll see him in other positions up top here. Let's move on to right attackers. And here we have Thabang Sessigny. Thabang Sessigny as a definite candidate. And then 2 possible candidates, Mfo Kagswane, and he is not likely, but at the possible level. And the other possible one, Shefo Kasela Lebale. Okay, those are the 3 candidates. In terms of the narrative on the position, Thabang Sessigny was the main player on this side, but he did start less than half of the games here, although he did appear in a couple of other positions as well. So several other players, including the left attacking midfielders we met, Siakanyang and Orobonye, appeared here anywhere from 1 to 3 times. So a bit less settled over here. Let's look at Thabang Sessigny. He's been with Botswana since 2016 with 36 caps and 4 goals, and he's 32 years old. He's in his second stint with Jwaneng Galaxy since 2019, but he did play for a couple of teams in South Africa, including Platinum Stars in 2017 and 18. Sessigny scored 1 of their goals in qualifying for this cup. That was a glorious home win to complete the double over Cape Verde. There, he also scored 1 of their goals in World Cup qualifying too. And over the period, Sessigny started 9 of their 16 games and subbed in for the 7 others. So always selected and always fielded as well. So Thabang Sessigny, a definite candidate. The first of our possible candidates, Mfo Kaswane, has been with Botswana since 2015 with 23 caps and 2 goals. He's 31 years old. He plays for Extension Gunners in Botswana, and he returned after a more than 3-year absence in September of 2025 and started 2 of their remaining 4 games, but then was not selected for the last 2 matches. So interesting to see whether he'll be selected for Kaswane. The other possible candidate here is Shefo Kasela Lebale, and he is with Botswana just since 2025 here with 2 caps and no goals. He's 24 years old, also plays for Jwaneng Galaxy since 2025. And he got his first cap in March of 2025, didn't start any games, but was subbed in for 2 and then not selected for the last 4 matches. So Kasela Bale, just a possible candidate here. Okay, let's move on to the central attackers, and I'll just talk about the position here. The position only exists as a central attacking midfielder in a 4-2-3-1 formation. And as we saw in section 1, they used that only 5 times over the period. Nevertheless, we have quite a few players coded as attacking midfielders. In fact, if you recall, we moved a couple of them to the central midfield. That was Gilbert Baruti and Modingwane. We moved both of those. Nevertheless, we still have quite a few candidates here. At the definite level, we have Segolame Boy. And at the likely level, Thero Setsile. And then three players at the possible level. The first one is Thataone Kamanyane. Kamanyane is at the possible level. Next, we have Omphile Viasagi, and then Theo Shadikong. Those are the three at the possible level. All three of them newcomers to the squad over the period, as well as the likely candidate here. Oh no, I think I've made a mistake there. Some of them are not. So I'm just actually changing the colors on a couple of them here. Okay, so Setsele should be in light gray. He's been on the team for a while. Same with Kamanyane. He's been on the team for a while too. However, the others are correct. Two then at the possible but unlikely level, Gift Moyo and Rene Batlokwa. Both of those possible but unlikely. So a lot of candidates here for a position that they don't use that much. But let's go to the narrative and see what went on there. So as we said, 5 times the position was used, or a formation in which the position was used. It was played twice by Gilbert Baruti, but as you saw, we did move him to central midfield because he played there. Sagolame Boy started there once, and left attacking midfielder Sia Kanyang started there once, and right attacking midfielder Thaban Sasinyi started there once. So a bit ironic that we have so many candidates here, and yet 2 of the starters were out of position players. But there we have it. Let's take a look at the players. Segolame Boy has been with Botswana since 2014 with 47 caps and 5 goals. He's 33 years old. He plays for Sua Flamengos in Botswana. That's a recent move in 2025 from Township Rollers, who he was with for 11 years before that. Segolame Boy started 3 of their 16 games, and I should say his 3 starts were in 3 different positions. He was a left attacking winger in one, a central attacking midfielder, as he is coded, in one, and then as a right forward in one of the few times they used a 2 forward formation. Okay, so 3 starts over their 16 games. He was also subbed in for 5 and on the bench for 5, and then not selected for 3 others. So we have him as a definite candidate to be called up, although certainly not a definite starter there. At the likely level, we have Thero Setsile, and he's been with Botswana since 2017 with 38 caps and 4 goals. He's 30 years old, and he's in his 3rd stint with Dwaneng Galaxy in Botswana there since 2024. And Setsile returned after a 2-year absence in March of 2025 and started 3 of their remaining 6 games. He subbed in for 2 and was on the bench for 1, so always called up since his return. And he started as a left attacking midfielder once, a right attacking midfielder once, and as a lone forward once. Okay, on to the first of our 3 likely candidates, Thataone Kamanyane, with Botswana since 2017 with 32 caps and 6 goals. Kamanyane is 29 years old and in his 2nd stint with Gaborone United in Botswana since 2019. He did play actually for Chippa United in South Africa briefly before that. Kamanyane has started 1 of their 16 games over the period, subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 1. and not selected for 12 matches, including the last two. So just at the possible level here. Next, we have Omphile Viasagi, and he's new to the team since 2025, just one cap for him and no goals. Very late in coming because he's 31 years old and plays for Township Rollers Botswana since 2023. And he did appear on the bench for a single appearance in 2023 and then returned after a more than 2-year absence in October of 2025. So right at the end here. Didn't start either of the remaining two games, but was subbed in for one and on the bench for one. So Viasagi finally getting a look in at the national team here. The third likely candidate is Theo Shadicombe. He's been with Botswana since, he got his first cap in March of 2025, but actually doesn't have any caps. He's 23 years old, played for Centre Chiefs in Botswana. And as I say, got his first appearance on the bench in March 2025. Didn't start any games, was on the bench for 4, and that includes the last 2 matches. But he was there were 2 matches he was not selected for. Okay, we have 2 possible but unlikely candidates. We won't give biographical information on them. We'll just say Gift Moyo was not selected for the last 5 matches. He's actually been on the team since 2013, but only has 12 caps in that time. Gift Moyo didn't start any games, but was subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 4, and not selected for the last 5. The other one is Rene Batlokwa, and he's been on the team since 2019 with just 1 cap. He's the player who plays in England. I think I said Malden and Tiptree in the section 1, but actually he has since moved to another very obscure club, Bowers and Pitsea in England. So very small clubs there. He was born in Botswana and seems to have moved to England at a young age. Anyway, he came back after an almost 5.5-year absence to appear on the bench twice in March 2025, and then was not called up for the fall 2025 matches. So Batlokwa not likely here. Okay, on we go to the forward line. We do have a player coded as a secondary striker, and that is Serati Samadi. So we'll put him on the list here. He's at the possible level. And we'll just deal with him here because he didn't start any games, so he's not really part of the narrative. Samadi has been with the team since 2025 with 4 caps and no goals, and he's 30 years old. Plays for Sua Flamengos in Botswana since 2024. He got his first cap in September of 2025, right at the end here. Didn't start any of the remaining 4 games, but was subbed in for all 4 matches. So Serati Samadi, a possible candidate here. Now let's go to the forwards. And, interestingly, no, sorry, I'm mixing that up with something else. We do have a player who we moved to Misang Orabonye. We moved him to the left attacking midfielder position because he fits the narrative best there. He actually played as a forward just as much as a left attacker. Beyond him, though, we have 2 candidates at the possible level, and that is Thabo Maponda and Thatayone Ramatlapeng, both at the possible level. At the possible but unlikely, we have Godfrey Tayatswala, and then 2 candidates at the seemingly off the squad level, Omatla Kabatho and Mola Odi Tihalafang. Okay, let's talk about the position. So as we saw in section 1, it is 87% of the time just a single forward, and then in a couple of games, so 13% of the time, 2 forwards there. And Interestingly, the players we've introduced coded as forwards barely earned a start among them. In fact, Thabo Maponda was the only player to get a start, and he only got one. The position was filled by a dizzying array of the players we've met so far. So Tumasang Orabonye, who we moved to left attacking midfield, did get as many starts here, but really he was the only player to appear more than twice. And really it's not worth naming the players beyond that because, for example, 5 different players started as forwards over the last 4 games. So we did mention a couple of them as we went through the left attacking and right attacking midfielders and the central attacking midfielders, several of those players getting 1 or maybe 2 starts. Okay, so let's look at the candidates then. Thabo Maponda, been with Botswana since 2023. He has 5 caps and no goals. He's 25 years old and plays for Gaborone United in Botswana. Having earned a single cap in 2023, he returned after an almost 2-year absence in September of 2025 and started 1 of their remaining 4 games and was subbed in for the 3 others. So we think a possible candidate to reach the squad with that recent involvement. Next, we have Thateone Ramatlapeng. He's been with Botswana since 2019 with 5 caps and no goals. He's 29 years old and recently moved to Township Rollers in Botswana. And he first appeared in 2019 and then returned after a 6-year absence in October of 2025. So just for the last 2 games there, he didn't start either of them, but was subbed in for both. So Ramatlapeng, also a possible candidate. At the possible but unlikely level, we have Godfrey Tayutsawala, and he was not selected for the last 5 matches. He didn't start any and was on the bench for 1, then not selected for the last 5 matches. And then our 2 seemingly off the squad players, Omatla Kebatho, actually has been with Botswana since 2015 with 27 caps and 3 goals, but not selected for the last 8 matches. And finally, Malaodi Tlalafang last appeared on the bench in November of 2024, so seems to be well off the squad. Both of those players, the last 2, scored in recent campaigns. Kebatho, 1 of their 4 goals in qualifying for this cup, and Tlalafang, 1 of their 12 goals in World Cup qualifying there. But that's it. That brings us to the end of our look at the players, and we move into section 3, where we want to welcome listeners to the short version on part 1 of Botswana's players. We are releasing section 3 here as a short version. So I'll just say to those listeners that in the full version, we introduced the candidates for each position and their likelihood of making the final squad, and gave some career information on especially the main players. So we're just reviewing that here, the list of players. We're not concerning ourselves with starters at this point. That's something we're going to do in part 2. But just the candidates for making the squad here. And we begin with manager Morena Ramoraboli. He came in January 2025. It was actually Didio Gomez da Rosa who guided them through qualifying. We're not sure at what point he quit the squad. He was disappointed with support from the FA. So he quit the squad, and Ramoraboli took over for the second half of the period that we're looking at. Goalkeepers, we have no definite candidates, but 4 likely candidates. Cabello Dombe, Gozione Foco, Kiagile Gotsipula, and Lesenia Malapela. All 4 of those have reasons for us to feel they're likely selections. Of course, they'll probably bring just 3 to the Cup. We won't get into candidates who are at the possible but unlikely or seemingly off the squad level. We'll focus on the more likely ones. Let's move on to central defence. And we have a definite candidate in Moshe Gaulalweli. And I'm butchering that name. Gaulalwi is probably closer to it. Anyway, a definite candidate there. Two likely candidates, Tebogo Kopalang and Tataone Ditlokwe. And two possible candidates, Shanganani Nganda and Kemonitswe Mangwedi. So 5 candidates for central defence there. Left backs, we have no one at the definite level, but at the likely level, Mothusi Johnson, and then 2 possible candidates in Kitso Mangolo and Chico Malefe. Right back position, we do have a definite candidate. It's Alfred Valafi, and a likely candidate in Thabo Lenanyane. And a possible candidate also in Botsile Sakana. Those are 3 candidates at the right back level. Lenanyane has played as a central defender and a defensive midfielder as well, so he may be in other positions. Moving up to the defensive midfielders, we have a definite candidate in Gape Mohutsiwa and a possible candidate in Koketso Majafi. And for central midfielders, also a definite candidate. We have moved attacking midfielder Gilbert Baruti, even though he does play as both an attacking midfielder and even once as a forward. He was in the central defence more. So Gilbert Baruti, a definite candidate. None at the likely level, but 4 candidates at the possible level, beginning with Libogang Ditsale, and then we have Mothusi Cooper. We have Fenyo Nicholas Sarameng and Godi Raone Modingwane. All 4 of those at the possible level. So, yeah, I won't get into talking about the position. Let's move on upfield to the attacking midfielders. Here we have 2 definite candidates. One of them actually coded as a forward and probably plays as a forward just as much as a left attacker. It's Tumisang Orobonye. And he's kind of sharing the position with Cabello Siakanyang. There, but both of those play in other positions in the forward line. For right attackers, we have a definite candidate in Thabang Sasinyi and 2 possible candidates, Mfo Kakswane and Chefo Kaselabale. And we have a whole bunch of candidates for central attackers, even though they don't use the position much. In fact, anyway, the first one is a definite candidate, Segolame Boy, and he, like several of these players, appear in different positions. We have a likely candidate in Thero Setsile, and 3 possible candidates, Tataone Kamanyane, and Omfile Viasagi, and finally Theo Shadikong. All 3 of those possible candidates for making the squad. Moving up to the forward line, we do have 1 player coded as a secondary striker, I should say, Sarati Samade. He's at the possible level. And then for forwards, with only 1 start among them, we have 2 at the possible level, Thabo Maponda and Tataone Ramatlapeng. And then we also have 3 candidates at the less likely levels, which we won't mention. And that's it. That's a run through the list of players that we created in Section 2. Let's go on to the next order of business in Section 3. Big names off the squad. Well, the last time they reached the African Cup was in 2012. And we only have 1 player on the squad who was part of that tournament. but we don't have any big names to tell you about that are off the squad. So we'll go straight to injuries. And wow, we have nothing to tell you here either, because there are no injury concerns that we know about. So we can move on to closing thoughts. Do I have any closing thoughts about Botswana? Well, it's a small squad. Most of them play locally. Maybe the most interesting part of this media cast was the club affiliations. And if you compare what we saw here, most of them playing in the Botswana League, to something like Senegal, with most of them playing for top European clubs, it kind of gives a sense of the difference between them in terms of club affiliations. Okay, let's move on to the last order of business, previewing part 2. So we're going to do part 2 when the preliminary and final rosters are published, and we'll tell you who made it and who didn't, and we'll highlight any notable non-selections or any surprise inclusions and any new players to the named to the squad, and we'll update on injuries if we have any information there. And finally, in part 2, one of the things we do is to predict the starters that we expect to see on the field. So that's all we can do in part 1. We have to wait for the squads to be published to move beyond this, so we hope you join us for part 2. We would like to thank Pixabay and Cold Fingers for the wonderful music used in this media cast. The title of the piece is Eid Mubarak.